Hello, all you beautiful metalheads, and welcome back to Metal Albums with Birds on the Cover. This is our third episode where we look at metal albums with birds on the cover. This time we're looking at albums that I listened to in September. Fair word of warning right away, of course, you'll notice from the episode length, this month was a little light on this fare, honestly. I suppose I could have filled in the gaps by getting some more old albums to listen to, but them's the breaks sometimes. Sometimes it is a little bit. You can't predict how many Bird albums come out, so but there's always something to listen to. So I'm glad to be able to do this show once again for you folks' entertainment. Before we get into the meat and potatoes, of course, I'd like to talk about a concert that I attended in September, just as I reviewed my trip to Dark River Festival in August. That was my big live music trip that time. I did manage to have a concert experience in September. I was invited out of the blue by my friend Warehag to go watch The Who. No, not The Who, not the CSI guys, right? No, not that. Not the British The Who. The Who from Mongolia. You may have heard of them. They're kind of a cultural phenomenon, right? Because they really came through with their cool blend of classic metal, real rock and roll heavy metal combined with Mongolian folk influences. They had a gig in September here in Helsinki at Kulttuuritalo, so I was lucky enough to attend. I will say a word first about the warm-up band. I do think they deserve a word at least. The band was Solens, a kind of alt-rock, modern, hip-hop influenced kind of modern rock, whatever the hell Blind Channel is. Let me quickly look up. What is Blind Channel classified by Wikipedia as a genre? Let me have a really quick... I'm very curious. They themselves call their music violent pop. Sure, that's fine with me. Apparently it is nu metal, alternative rock, rap metal, and electronic-core. Yeah, I feel like Solens fit that bill as well. So my friends Warehag and Jonathan, who were watching there, they don't have a lot of patience for any of those genres, so they did not have anything warm to say about that band. So, unfortunately, yeah, didn't make an impression on my friends. I'm pretty warm to these genres as well. Not exactly my favorites, with the exception of whatever the hell electronic core is, I suppose, because that sounds like something like. Let me quickly see if One Morning Left. Yes, One Morning Left is listed as electronic core. And Electric Callboy. So that music I do love. The other ones are pretty good too. So I'll say that, Solens didn't exactly impress me a whole lot either. I enjoyed the show, but it wasn't particularly memorable. I'm struggling now. I'm recording this a couple weeks later. I'm struggling to remember anything particularly notable, except for the cartoonish hype that the singer had for his band, leading a chant of who is the best band in the world, Solens. Okay, points for Moxie, I suppose, but it, I don't know, it was that kind of hip-hop jump up and down kind of new metal / alt metal stuff. It didn't really jump out to me. Certainly the band jumped around, but it didn't jump out to me as particularly impressive. But I could see this band if they a little bit more, I don't know, could add a little bit more intensity in the music and some groovier synth fills. This band could improve. They have one album out so far. I could see that this band could become something I enjoy in the future. And, good job. I was surprised to hear I talked to the band members afterwards when I spotted them at the merch booth, and thanked them for their show. I was surprised to find that they apparently are going on tour with The Who. It really didn't feel like it matched The Who very much musically, so it really felt to me like a band that they came up with at the last moment to promote her as a warm-up band. But no, apparently they are going on a big tour, so good on them, because The Who is certainly a big draw. And let's jump over to The Who. So yeah, of course I've heard the couple of songs from them that are the big hits. Juve Juve You, The Great Genghis Khan, Wolf Totem are those ones. And I did hear their cover of Metallica's Sad But True when that came out. That was pretty fun too. So I've heard the big hits. I haven't listened to like a whole lot of their variety of music, but I did, of course. It was very impressive, them as a presence on the band. There's 8 members here, 4 standard members, but then 4 more filling in with live instrumentation for a lot of the kind of more traditional instruments, like the kind of horsehead violin, horsehead fiddle, and there's like extra percussions there for those kind of really like war drum looking things, So they were a real big presence. They had a huge sound. They like really captured the audience. Everyone was super into them, and well, we did joke that they clearly probably didn't talk a lot of English. They probably just rehearsed a certain few sentences that they said, but it was enough. Like their lines were enough to like get the crowd hyped with their cool music. It's a really eclectic blend. I do like this kind of music. I am a sucker for when you blend fascinating folk instrumentation with metal music, and I have quite a bit of a soft spot for Mongol culture and stuff. I find the kind of vibes very fun. So of course, a band bringing that to the forefront is good stuff. I'll say at an hour 30 minutes, and it's quite a mid-tempo band. Like most of their songs are kind of mid to slow tempo rolling rock mood vibe music. It started to bleed into each other a little bit, but then really kick ass. They revealed a second Metallica cover about halfway through. I did not realize they had covered Through the Never also in Mongolian and with their own flourishes. And that was a great shot in the arm, because that came around the halfway point of the concert, and it was really cool. It's like, oh, wait a second, this sounds like Through the Never. It is Through the Never, and it's like a nice, bouncy, fast song to like really get you hyped. And that helped carry on the thing. I was for the most part really, really enjoying their show. So I would recommend seeing these guys while they're still touring about. If you get a chance, I think The Who is pretty cool. Unfortunately, of course, the coda here is that neither of these bands are pretty applicable for this show, because none of their albums have any birds on the cover, unfortunately. So this was just the metal side of me giving my report. No birds to really offer. Not on the album covers. I did buy a The Who t-shirt that has an eagle on it, all big front and center. So I supported the birds and metal movement by buying that shirt, at least. Kind of saw it and realized it was my calling to get that shirt. So a little bit of that there, but otherwise, yeah, no, not much birds to look forward to. I'm sure you'll find some in the lyrics somewhere. I would almost bet money on it, but yeah. Okay, but yeah, that was it for the preamble. Let's roll into the albums here and see what I managed to dredge up that was metal albums with birds in the cover. Check this out! Alright, starting off this month with the Black Dahlia Murder, giving us their 10th album, Servitude. Now this is a bit of a corner case, but we'll do it anyway, alright? In the interest of fairness, I suppose. This is their first album since the tragic loss of their previous singer, Trevor Strnad, who passed away in 2022, and the band did decide to carry on without him. Their former rhythm guitarist Brian Eschbach swapped in to be now the lead vocalist, and they brought back an old guitarist of theirs, Ryan Knight, to fill in as rhythm guitarist now on this album. So the band got over this tragedy for them, and this album seems to have been well received. So it seems to have been a good thing that they've been able to bounce back. In terms of this show, right, of course, I'm a little like, does this count? Because we are once again there, like, do we allow supernatural birds on the show? And which supernatural birds we do allow, if so. So there's a bunch of these demonic creatures on the top left and top right, and for sure, a lot of them have avian features on them, which is why I decided ultimately to feature this album on this show. But it is definitely, you could probably take me to task. All I'm saying is some of those heads over on the top left, where you can just see the head peeking out of the mass of demons, definitely have an avian quality to them. If I didn't have all those other demons around them as examples, I might suspect that they, might have been like ravens or maybe storks or something. But, safe bet that they're also demonic entities. But I will allow it this one time. And I do like, ignoring the bird factor for a second, I do like this album cover. It's interesting, it's mysterious what's going on here. There's a hole in the very ocean or whatever this water is, and like all these people are being sucked in, and then these demons are congregating around it. The album's titled Servitude, so like, who is serving whom in this situation? It's evocative. I do like this quite a bit. Now, the music itself. So I do have to apologize to the Black Dahlia murder and its fan base for having been misunderstanding the band for years now, because I hadn't actually listened to this band before this album. Of course, I've known its name for ages. I had somehow gotten the impression that this was one of those newfangled aughts new metal, not NU metal, but like newer modern metal sound bands of the aughts that like old fogey metal folks really looked down on. Like I don't know, I had this impression that we were dealing with like more modern sounding music than what the Black Dahlia murder really ultimately is. I think I may have been confusing the band with the Dillinger Escape Plan, a similarly named band thematically and like cadence-wise, the name of the band, which is a classic example of math metal, and certainly a band that old fogies don't like. So I think by association of similar name, I somehow screwed up and thought about the Black Dahlia murder in the same light. But no, this is actually a pretty straightforward, like, maybe not exactly old school death metal, but definitely like a really like classic American death metal album. The band seems to be called Melodic Death, and I don't quite feel those influences here much. I don't know, maybe just my impression is colored so heavily by having listened to Nordic melodic death metal and like expecting like all that like keyboard virtuosity along with the harmonious guitar work. Like this is a band, I don't think, hold on, let me really quickly check. Yeah, they don't have a keyboard in this band, so like that what I consider like really central to a melodeath band is missing. So I guess that's, but maybe my expectations are skewed by the kind of music I've listened to. Certainly this has a lead and a rhythm guitarist in it, so maybe that is. And the band themselves have called themselves, as Melodeath. They've cited Carcass and In Flames as influences, so but yeah, to my silly Nordic ear, this comes off as more trad death metal. Like there's the guitar, there are some fascinating riff works there, and the two guitars playing off each other occasionally very interestingly, which kind of brings to mind like a Melodeath band. But my feeling is that it's actually more like, just like pretty fast-paced with an occasional mid-paced song with some pretty intense work. Not quite tech death either, but fairly straightforward in that like mind of like a really, really high intensity, high speed death metal. Sadly, that means that it doesn't quite jump to me, like, unfortunately. I don't know, none of the, like, groovy riffs really grabbed me that much that I'm going to be listening to this again, I'm afraid. But it is, quality-wise, like instrumentation-wise, these are some really talented guys. There's some really interesting, work being done, and they're like with the drums and the guitars, and the vocalist singing is intense. New guy, well, quote unquote new guy in role of vocalist is putting in some straight work. I wonder if, again, this is the first album since their tragic loss. Like, maybe that's coloring. Like, this is more of an angrier traditional death metal album because of that. I do feel like I need to go and listen to their back catalog, because this is an interesting surprise that this band was what it was. This one isn't going to be in my regular rotation, though, unfortunately. Fine album on its merits, but me personally, I'm not grabbed, sorry to say. From black to blue, let's talk about Blue Heron, coming with their second album, Everything Fades. This is stoner metal being served up to you from the depths of Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's pretty interesting. The cover only has a bird in the logo, so this is once again one of those corner cases where I'm like, well, if the band has a bird in the cover, that's not cheating, that's just being clever. So they are getting featured on the show despite the lack of birds in the album art proper. Not to mention, Blue Heron actually didn't have that bird in their first album's logo, so, it's an update. Good job. And the bird, of course, presumably is supposed to be a heron right there. It certainly has the general shape of it. Bit more ibis-y, almost, I would say, and I think I'm being fooled a little bit by the interesting choice that it seems to have what looks like a crescent moon on its head, which kind of brings, like, Egyptian art to my mind. So that's an interesting contrast. Because, the Great Blue Heron is, I would say it's one of those, like, classic American birds. It's not the number one bird that obviously I'd think of, like the bald eagle, if you think of United States birds, but the Great Blue Heron is up there. I will admit I didn't know/remember the name of that bird until I was Googling this band Blue Heron and pictures came up of it, but I was instantly like, yeah, right, okay, that's what they're talking about, that thing. Very, very famous bird, so, but yeah, I really, it's like, lives only in North America and parts of Central and South America, so, very much associated there, but then the Egypt vibe with the crescent moon, kind of odd, but interesting, like, not a dig against the band. The album cover itself, it's an inspired choice, I think, because it's a photo of, I'm gonna guess that's like a grain silo, and it's certainly looking faded, so I get the theme there. I've seen these kinds of old grain silos in places here in Finland when driving around, and I don't think those things are used for that anymore. I don't know how people in the agricultural industry store grain nowadays, but it isn't in these giant concrete bunker silo things anymore, as far as I'm aware. So if you want something that is fading, I think those are really emblematic as buildings, because the only ones left are the ones that are out of use, and they're just slowly withering away, because they're, old, worn down cement buildings. But fun choice having, like, this little kudzu growth here, implying that even as everything fades, something grows to replace it, I think is the theme going on here. I don't know. And also a sweltering desert sun up there at the top, because this is some proper-ass desert rock, if you want to call it that instead of stoner rock. And let's talk about the music itself. So it immediately, after a bit of a build-up song, kicks into, quite a long build-up song too. Null Geodesic takes a while, just kind of setting the mood. Kicks off with some very Lemmy Kilmister-ish, like, very raspy vocals and some really slow and plodding desert rock coming at ya. A little too slow and plodding, I'd say, at first. I think this album takes a while to, well, not pick up speed, because it is a very slow-tempo album, but, like, get to the point, I suppose. It's only the latter half where I start picking up some, like, really catchy riffs mixed in, and the kind of mood gets to the proper desert rock, stoner rock vibe that I'm looking for, at least that I personally like. The first half is just a little, just kind of trudging stoner music. I know, it's part of the genre too, so I suppose guys more into this scene will maybe be able to appreciate it more than I did, but yeah, I think it struggled a little bit with its opening, but definitely I was grooving along by the end of the album. It ends on a outro song, Flight of the Heron, that just is a nice little, dot on top of the I there. Just finishing off the album with some really sweet riffing. So it's pretty good. If you're a connoisseur of this genre, I imagine it'll hit you a little bit harder. I do like this genre, but I'm definitely admit that I've only gotten into it over the recent years, so maybe my vibes are still a little low there. I couldn't quite get into it, but I had a good time. Pretty interesting band. I'll keep it in mind in case they make more bird-themed stuff, since the name has a big old heron in it. Promising. Alright, let's jump on to Elephant Tree and their debut album, Theia, which is in fact celebrating 10 years. I think hereabouts. So it's got a 10-year anniversary release, and that's why I'm looking at it now. My first reaction when I saw Elephant Tree was like, no, wait, hang on, isn't the band called Porcupine Tree? But that is in fact a different band. Both from England, I do believe. But Porcupine Tree is more psych rock, and this is more stoner metal. So they're not that far apart, all things considered, but different bands. I almost overlooked this album cover for the show, I mean. I almost missed the bird, but there is in fact a really peeved owl in the hollow of the tree at the top of this image, and I really... This owl is hilarious. It looks so disgruntled that it's really funny. It kind of, in some way, it's the worst thing about this image because it just kind of turns the image into a joke. But at the same time, I love how cheesed off this owl looks. Another woman getting sublimated by my tree into the arms of nature or whatever. Must be a Tuesday. That's the vibe here. Outside of that, it's a fun album cover, I think. It's very kind of trippy and kind of spooky, so I really enjoy it for that. And it's fascinating. So it is clearly a woman, I don't know, like standing underneath this tree, like almost fusing into it. But my first thought, my brain first went to a woman being burned on the stake, was what this image I thought at first had going on. And even once I noticed that it was like a tree and not a stake, I still thought that she was being burned alive on this tree. But if you really do look at it, it's just like she's standing in like underneath a tree, and like the quote-unquote flames just appear to be like plant leaves. I think I do wonder if this picture was made on purpose to be ambiguous like that, in which case I think that makes this image even cooler, that it's like, ambiguous. Is she being burned? Is she just standing in nature? What's going on here? Very, very weird. Or maybe my mind just is really twisted. That could also be the case. Oh, I should also make a note. This is the 10th anniversary special edition album cover, but it is simply a photo negative of the original release. So the original release is black ink on a white background, so it's not that much different. But yeah, I quite like it. Yeah, I don't know. The owl kind of sort of ruins it, but it's also kind of sort of funny. So yeah. Now the music is real proper stoner metal with some doomy vibes at times, with the kind of really chugging guitar. Didn't really leave much of an impression on me, sadly. It's all very, very, like professionally done. They're very good at playing, And it like, I listened to it happily at the time, but I can't say that any of the songs really stuck with me afterwards. It's just kind of competently played stoner metal that gives you nice, goofy vibes. There is a sitar in there, which that amused me. Make it extra trippy, the music, having the classic trip music instrument, the sitar, for a couple of songs on the like first half of the album. Feel like it was missing towards the second half. And the lyrics, I guess, or the singing, the vocals, they kind of have a grunge thing going on. I guess, it's more a bit nasally lyrics with some, almost spoken wordish at times. The vocalization. So that can, of course, affect people's moods as well. Maybe that's why I wasn't like jumping out of my seat for this album. Hate to say I don't have a lot to say about the music here, unfortunately. It was a fine stoner release, but couldn't really grab me, unfortunately. I don't know. I'll have to look at their other albums sometime too. Maybe there's something more gripping there. Alright, it's that time of the episode where I discuss the band that borderline shouldn't probably be here because it barely even counts as metal at all, but I'm gonna do it anyway because it's my show and I can really talk about other music as well if I so damn choose, so here we go. But, this is the word of warning for those of you who really do only want metal music. This is the review you're gonna want to skip off of this episode. This is Miseria Ultima with their fourth album, Arctic Esotericism. This is dark electro being served up here from Finland. And it's basically electronic music, so this is, how do you classify this as metal? Maybe the vibe and the vocals, but I'll just say that in 2023 at Tuska Festival, some would say the premier metal festival here in Finland, I watched these guys perform live, so if they were good enough for Tuska, I'm gonna allow them on the show. In fact, freaking metalheads, traditionalist metalheads might get really mad at me because the freaking main event of the day, Gojira, was playing on the main stage at that point, but there I was in the tiny, indoor stage jamming to Miseria Ultima instead of listening to Gojira. I'm not the biggest Gojira fan, so what are you gonna do? These guys were fun back then, so really happy to listen to them again. This is also a case, once again, yet another example of a band where the bird is in the logo of the band instead of the actual album art, so, you've heard it by now if you watched previous episodes, so you know that that's enough to get on this show, and that's why we're reviewing it. Kind of looks like, I'm gonna guess it's a tried and true raven on the logo there of Miseria Ultima there. So kind of not shapely enough to be a bird of prey, I don't think. So I'm gonna go with the safe guess of a raven because I feel like most birds have actually been a raven or some kind of corvid on these album covers. Oh well. Apart from that and the fun logo, I do like them. It's got that gritty, angular, industrial look that you want for a nice, angry electro band, angry techno band, very good. Apart from that, this is a pretty cool album cover. I like the energy of it, the kind of spooky winter vibes. I'm always a sucker for winter as well. This could have been also a show instead of metal albums with birds on the cover. I could have maybe kind of done a show called Metal Birds with Winter on the cover, but I think that would have limited the variety of the show, and I do think I like birds more than winter. But that doesn't mean that I don't always kind of perk up if there's like a nice wintry theme going on, and this one is right on there, so I quite like it. The very simple colorscape is nice. The characters are spooky, though... I don't know, some of those shapes of characters are once again making my is this AI meter tick, unfortunately. I don't know, but I'm gonna go with this as an AI. I think There's the hands on that one guy whose hands you can see look all normal, fairly normal. And okay, also a very nice detail if you pay attention that the portal that these people are congregating at, you can see some kind of death metal-ish nightmare tentacle flesh warp nonsense going on there. I like that it's kind of almost hard to spot because the lighting is so strong there. But if you like squint, well, you don't really squint, but if you like pay more than 5 seconds of attention to this album cover and you look at what's going on in that portal and you realize, ooh, that's not fun. That's a texture from a Doom game propped up there. Yeah, it's kind of neat. So, pretty cool album cover. I dig it. I dig it quite a bit. Right, the music. I also dug this quite a bit. It's as far as I could find, dark electro was the classification for this music, this genre, but a little bit of digging. There certainly is that. It's electronic music for sure. Some pumping techno. It's not that dark. Like this bass understanding of the word dark. Like I didn't find it that dark, honestly. It's often quite upbeat. That's not an exaggeration. This is all very, very low to mid tempo. It's kind of churning music. That's why I think that counts as techno. I'm really, really bad at talking about electronic music. I don't quite understand the terminology super well, but the point is that this is a little bit like more slower pace. It definitely makes me want to bounce around, but at a rather restrained pace, if you will. And but it's got like this kind of like it isn't like super oppressive dark vibes all the time. There's I'd say like 50-50 maybe, and even then it's not as crushing as some industrial music I've listened to that just really wants to make you feel uncomfortable. Just like a little bit of menace to the music. But then at the other times also kind of like, like I said, weirdly uplifting music on top. It's really... It reminds me of early 2000 and late 90s homemade like video game soundtracks for like, those kind of like free to play, shared online, tiny little, maybe Flash or maybe just homemade games. And particularly I'm thinking of the classic Wings with its incredible soundtrack, which I heartily recommend people to look up the amazing techno beats of Wings. This music reminds me of something of that era. Or alternatively, like, Half-Life's kind of like bouncing techno. Just today, I got done recording some Half-Life 2 with one of those bouncing beats. It's the beach approach to Nova Prospect for anyone who's played Half-Life 2 and wants to recall what song I'm thinking of. And it was very nice to transfer to listen to Miseria Ultima because it's exactly that vibe. And yeah, I dig it quite a lot. I had a really good time listening to this. The vocals are interesting because that's the most metal part of this, apart from the kind of dark vibes, I suppose. But the vocals are definitely, the most metal vibe here because they are really harsh. That kind of adds its own spin to here. And there's also, curiously, like, there's definitely some kind of audio filter being put on to make it sound like more grainy and machine-like, ethereal, to make it sound even spookier. So it's got a kind of a interesting, unique vibe. I'm not sure if I would have enjoyed this more as an instrumental, really, thinking again to all those video game soundtracks. But it does add something to the like mid-tempo bounce, having these like chanting kind of harsh vocals in there. So I don't think it wasn't entirely a miss, although I would love to hear the instrumental version of this album. Only real downside I'd say is I feel like this album didn't have much of a start or a finish to it. The first and last tracks didn't really have some kind of sense of like, let's kick it off, nor was there like some sense of finality. They just kind of felt like we immediately just jumped into like playing music, the kind of music that's on this album, and it just kind of carried on and then it stopped. I don't know. I suppose that's par. This is supposed to have like this kind of just ongoing churning vibe to it. I suppose, in a DJ set you could just seamlessly go from one song to the other. but as an album experience, I don't know, it felt all a little abrupt, so probably my only big minus to it. So yeah, this is a big ask, but if you're not into electronic music, this one's not going to be the one to turn your head around. But as someone who loves this kind of era of electronic music, this late 90s, early 2000s techno, this is a really nice addition to that genre. Feels like some music from a bygone era in a really, really warm, lovely way. And I do say warm, ironically, given the fact that it's ultimately a rather cold album, but it makes me warm in its weird way. I guess it's kind of like what Vanilla Ice says. Only way to melt a woman's heart, add a little ice. Okay, that was stupid. I'm just gonna end here. It's a good album. I liked it. Alright, so we had a fairly unorthodox corner case album at the start of today's edition of Metal Albums with Birds on the Cover. Let's end with a similarly unorthodox corner case that I don't know if it should be allowed or not, but whatever. This is Where's My Bible with their second album, which I don't know how to pronounce. It could be KAVE, but there's a lot of Finnish titles among the songs and the lyrics, so can be KAVE? I tried to look that up from a Finnish dictionary of fancy words, and I couldn't find such a word, not even like an old-timey word or anything, so I don't know. It's written, seems to be rendered in all caps, so it could be just a shortened KAVE. I haven't found lyrics for the song yet, so I can't be sure. Okay, so the unorthodox bird thing here is fairly obvious. There's no actual bird here. There's these wacky cultists who have bird skull masks, so I deemed that good enough to feature them here. Alright, it's a pretty cool album cover. I like the cultist vibe here. The logo of the band being held on these staffs is kind of neat. And I really like the background. At first I just thought that these cultists were standing in a, random shaded background thing. So, but I looked closer and it's actually a grayscale, really creepy pinewood forest. So that's pretty ominous. I like that once I realized that. It's a fine album cover. It definitely works for the vibe here. Now this album's a real potpourri of influences. It's kind of interesting like that. I'm also very confused because multiple sources that I looked up for descriptions of this band described it as a death and roll band. Now, death and roll to me, as I've understood, is like kvelertak, where it's like it's got like kind of really groovy, rock and roll sounding like music work, like the guitar riffs aren't like super intense. It's just kind of fun, like riffing there, but then with like really harsh lyrics of like something like I just now realized that's more black and roll is the term I've heard for kvelertak, while I see death and roll for this band. I guess there's some kind of nuance there that I'm missing, because I really didn't feel this album, this second album from them at least, does not really have those vibes. Maybe the first one does, because I've never heard you before, but the second album just seemed to me like modern melodic death. That's the vibe I got from it. It's the kind of melodic death that actually leans on the death side more than the melody. The guitar work is usually very intense and pounding, just like really chonky, rough grinding there, and the lyric work is like some pretty angry and direct. It's like pretty angry music, and while there is a keyboard and also some folk instruments here, sorry about that. That's embarrassing. You probably just heard my phone go off. Unprofessional. Oh well, we're keeping it in. Where was I going? Right. Yeah, there is keyboards and kind of folk instruments. They're kind of adding to the ambience, but it's not like the keyboards are going super nuts to like give you some really awesome melodic vibes, or like they're more like there to just provide some backing for the intense riffing here, and no any like crazy harmonic guitars or anything like having really wacky virtuoso playing. More very intense, quite a modern, like, you know, really intense thrumming, maybe a bit djenty, but only just a bit, you know. That's what I get out of this music, but it's pretty interesting. It's an interesting eclectic mix, and I did say that there's some folk vibes there. In particular, there is more than one song where they go for some throat singing, which Faria Faraji will happily point out that's not exactly actually authentic, like Northern European folk vibes at all. It's just kind of scary sounding singing that seems to complement the vibes, but whatever. That's what they go for, and it's pretty fun. I think it's amusing. Yeah, like there's that, and there is some amount of, like, you know, folk instruments vibes there of what come through every once in a while. And there's a couple of like ambient interlude songs as well to give you a break between the really intense stuff. So it's a really interesting like mix-up of music there, and I did have a good time listening to it. Maybe it's a bit too aggro for my tastes, especially if it tries to, like, you know, come off as, melodic death. I do like the more where the melodic part is a little bit more equal with the death, but altogether it had strong vibes, and kind of reminds me of Atlas and their album Ukko, which was also a weird mix of modern music with folk vibes. I say weird in the most positive of connotations here. So I had a good time listening to it, definitely. Good showing from this band. And there you have it, folks. That was the choice music of September of metal albums with birds on the cover. It was a light one indeed, as I may have mentioned in the intro. We only had 5 albums this time, half of what we went through last month, such as the Vagaries of Fate. I didn't have it to bump into any other albums while listening to music this month. So, and it was almost only 4 albums because I really did waffle on the Black Dahlia murder with those demonic beak creatures. But whatever. Might as well throw them in the mix as well, you know. I'll have to think about this in the future. Like, if I come into a similar situation, do I just like double my efforts to hunt around for album releases in a month like this? I don't know, because we only really forget the Black Dahlia murder, but even the other albums, the only one that really just had a bird in the image was Elephant Tree with that silly owl. The others were corner cases or birds in the logo, which, you know, I said is fine, I'll allow an album, but in a month like this where there isn't much other fare, it does feel a little like, ugh. But, you know, so it goes. And when we get to my favorite album here, it's also not going to look great, because I am going to go with the one that really doesn't count much as metal at all. I thought Miseria Ultima's release was pretty dang fun. So, while there was some really amazing, in terms of musical talent, very amazing fodder here in this music. Otherwise, like, it's, what am I gonna do? Like, it just didn't. The other albums didn't hook me as hard. I don't have a classic band like Black Dahlia Murder here, but like, I do have to admit that that's a blind spot in my listening because I haven't listened to them before. So if I had listened to the other 9 albums, maybe I would feel much bigger about this, release after the death of the original singer, like, album. Like, now I'm just like, well, it's a death metal album for sure. Interesting. But, the other albums, just, competent, fun, trippy, stoner, or, like, solid melodeath, But, Miseria Ultima was serving up some really fun electro music. Like, it got me to go back and listen to the soundtrack for Wings again. after a long while of not having heard those excellent video game beepity boops. So Miseria Ultima just really warmed my heart. Even though it's very cold, with that Arctic theme and cold image, it got good vibes in me. So I don't care. It's my freaking music show. I will give the album of the month to that one. It was very good. Although if I think about album art, it's a fine album cover, but the Theia one is really interesting. It's really trippy. And again, it's the only one where there was an actual bird inside the image itself. So I think that might be my number one album. It just looks cool. So I think I'll go with that, But sorry to the stoner metal bands. There were some cool riffs there, but just couldn't reach the rim for me this time. No worries. I've looked a little bit ahead that it looks like October will be having quite a few albums coming out, so we'll have more fodder to look at. I can't remember off the top of my head if any of the anticipated albums had a bird on the cover this month yet. I'll have to review my notes again, but we'll see how it goes. So once again, it's been a pleasure doing this show once again. So I hope you guys look forward to some more of this in October. Definitely am still aiming to at least wrap up the end of the year with this project, and we'll see what I do next year, because it's been interesting. We'll have more of a year in review at the end. I'll save those thoughts for December, but I'll just say that so far this has been a fun little thing to do, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it as well. All right, go listen to some good music, and I'll catch you all next time for some more of this nonsense. Bye!